And good morning, my beautiful America. Welcome back to the All American Book Club. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest joining us here in our nation's capital, a beautiful, shining city on a hill, the beautiful Alison Cheperdak. She is the author of Was It Something I Said? Everyday Etiquette to Avoid Awkward Moments in Relationships, Work, and Life. And as I was saying to Alison before we went live, I wish she would have been in Washington and had a book like this when I was launching my career in Washington, D.C., nearly 30 years ago. I am holding up for you on the YouTube channel the beautiful brand new book out. Go pick it up, especially you young Hill staffers, White House staffers, and everybody in between. We're going to be talking about America 250. We're going to be talking about Women's History Month, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, the First Ladies of the United States. So please help me welcome to the show, Alison Cheperdak. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Absolutely. So first, let's talk about you. Let's introduce to the audience who may have not heard about you yet, which is kind of unheard of because you're all over the place right now. Talk
Oh.
about you, the beginning for you, the inspiration for you.
The beginning for me and how I got into etiquette is my husband and I were engaged to be married, and I had all of these wedding etiquette questions that I didn't know the answer to. Like, do all my cousins get a plus one? How do I address this envelope to this couple? Where does everybody sit? All of these questions. So my mom suggested that I get my first etiquette book, which at the time was the Amy Vanderbilt Complete Book of Etiquette. And I thought that I was just going to turn to the pages that had the answers that I was looking for. And I found myself reading that first book cover to cover and countless books on etiquette and protocol and social emotional intelligence since then. And at the time, I was working as a news reporter and an anchor. And then I went to law school and I was practicing law and I'm working in the government. I eventually worked at the US Treasury and I worked in the West Wing of the White House. And I was continuing my personal study of etiquette because it was really interesting to me. And I saw, I'm sure you can relate, Eden, Washington is such a relationship-oriented town. A lot of people are not from here, and many people come with impressive credentials, but what really sets you apart is those social skills, being someone that is trusted, that has good discretion, that's a team player, all of these really positive qualities that we embody through our etiquette. And I was continuing to be really interested in etiquette. I got a certification in British and North American etiquette for my own personal growth and enjoyment, not necessarily wanting to share it with anyone because at this time I was still feeling like I didn't want to make people feel badly for what I knew that they didn't. Like I didn't want them to all of a sudden feel like I was watching them and what fork they picked up if we went to lunch together. Then I had a friend who asked me if I would ever consider teaching it. And she was the first person that planted the seed that I could share this information in a really winsome, affirming way. And I started posting on social media, and things took off pretty quickly to a point where I was getting a lot of speaking engagements. I came full circle. I now teach etiquette at the White House, and I have a book coming out on Tuesday. And so that's a very fast overview of how it started and how it's been going as of recently.
No, absolutely. I'm going to hold this up again for those who are watching, but for those who are listening, was it something I said? You can now go pick it up because I want to share with young Hill staffers, even young members of Congress. I mean, they're getting elected much younger than they were when I was on the Hill and in the White House. But I said to you before we hopped on, I wish we would have had something like this. With my love of Jacqueline Kennedy, her fashion, her legacy, I studied everything on Jackie when I was a kid. And so that was my etiquette book for going to Washington. That was my etiquette book for being in university in Washington, going to the Hill, going to the White House. I studied her fashion. I studied how she did her protocol. I studied how she presented herself at the White House before, during, and after the assassination, how she carried herself. And a lot of those things you talk about in this book, you talk about how we are to carry ourselves. You talk about how we present ourselves when we're in thrown into all these different situations, and everybody is climbing a ladder in Washington, which most of America doesn't understand unless they've lived it. And so you talk through sitting at a table, you talk through going to different events, you talk through how do I engage in small talk if I'm just coming into a scenario and a situation. And so it's a breath of fresh air to know that there is a book like this out there now for the new who are coming in. But the thing I love about you through this book and having met you at NRB is we talk about protocol and how protocol sometimes gets pushed to the wayside because of ideas and new administrations and different things like that. But the importance of presidential protocol is historic, it's patriotic.
Mhm.
And those things I think newer administrations have somewhat put to the wayside where we need to bring back because America 250, we are here for 250 years. We need to be implementing that patriotic piece to protocol. Can you talk a little bit about what it's been like for you to go to the West Wing, to talk to staffers when it comes to the importance of protocol, which is our patriotic duty?
Yeah, so when I think of protocol, I think of two things, or when I think of business etiquette and executive presence at the White House, there's being a staffer and interfacing
Mhm.
predominantly with staff, but there's also being a representative for the White House, for the president, and for America, for those that are, say, traveling or involved in diplomatic engagements with the president, the vice president, or the Secretary of State. And earlier this week, I was meeting with Ambassador Monica Crowley, who is the chief of protocol. And I will say that she speaks so kindly of her predecessors. There is a phenomenal history of men and women who have served in that role, many women when we speak of soft power. And when you are the chief of protocol, you are the purveyor of soft power. So if you think about like the carrot and the stick analogy, the president is the stick, the chief of protocol is the carrot, and they work
Yep.
together. And so when the president or the vice president or the secretary of state are meeting with other foreign leaders for bilateral meetings or other meetings, it's really important that the stage is set in the most respectful way so that the most productive conversations can happen for our national security, for our economic health, for all of these things. And so protocol is how we do that. And it's very delicate and it happens at the highest level, but it's something that we can think about no matter where you live, or if you ever come to Washington, or if you ever decide to work in politics, because there's something really beautiful about having these convictions, whether they're political, religious, whatever they might be. You can have very strong convictions, and you can also treat someone who doesn't share those convictions with the utmost dignity. And that's what the chief of protocol is the leader in doing and does on behalf of the president. So that's one component of protocol that happens at the White House and globally. And then another very important but different element of it is being a staffer and treating other staff professionally. As you know, having worked in Washington, Eden, people move around quickly. There's a lot of very ambitious people. There's a lot of questions that I have, especially with younger staff, about like, how do they convey their enthusiasm or their interest in working in a specific capacity or on a certain project, or they want to do some really cool opportunity that's available for someone, but they don't want to come across as too forward. They want to make sure that they're doing all of the work that's been assigned of them in an excellent way before they ask to do something else. So there's a lot of those types of conversations that happen too.
Well, one thing it stood out to me because we're talking about a generational difference here, but I noticed you still highlight the coffee meetings.
Hmm.
And whenever I am educating and inspiring and maybe even mentoring a younger generation of communicators, I sit there and say that interface is one of the best tools in your kit that you will carry through life. Being able to sit down and have that coffee, not just doing it virtually, but really getting to know a person. And I look back and say, I'm thankful I didn't have that technology. I'm thankful that I was almost forced to be able to do that. Yes, I am a people person. It was a natural ability, but it's not always natural people who are more introverted and more heads down, policy focused. but building those bridges and those relationships. I
Hmm.
can sit here and say to this audience, a lot of my friends are still in Washington and they have been friends for so many years, and contacts have been for so many years because of just being able to sit down, grab lunch, grab coffee. And you highlight that in this book. I want you to kind of pull that out a little bit.
And I speak to exactly how to approach it because some people don't know. And I say this with zero judgment. I really hope that this is helpful for someone who may be listening that hasn't heard this before. So, informational coffees are meetings where you're not officially applying for an interview, but you're looking to develop a relationship and to learn something from that person, whether it's about an industry, an organization, or just there's some value that you're looking to get from this interaction. And if you are the one who is asking for the meeting, you want to make sure that you are kind, specific, and deferential. And when I say specific, I mean you don't want the person to feel like you're asking everybody in the world to go to coffee. Because
Mhm.
especially if you're trying to meet with someone who is busy or has a demanding schedule, you want to be very respectful of their time. So what that looks like is not saying, "May I pick your brain?" or "Can we go to coffee sometime?" It's, "I would love to hear more about your work or why you went to law school. I'm trying to decide whether I should go to law school. I'm interested in government contracts. I know that that's the area that you specialize in. If you had time to sit down with me, I would really appreciate the opportunity to ask you a few questions." You can even provide bullet points of some questions or some issue areas that you're interested in talking about. Because if you think about the person who's receiving the email, they can think, that's easy. I don't need to prepare for this meeting. I can answer this right off the top of my head and I can be helpful because a mentor wants to be helpful.
Yes.
You also want to be deferential. So I completely agree with you, Eden, that sitting down face to face for coffee is the gold standard, but you also want to be flexible and you don't want to be the one that's demanding if the prospective mentor would rather talk with you on the phone or they're traveling or it's not possible to meet one-on-one.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You absolutely want to be differential to that and also say like if now's not a good time, I understand it's okay to follow up. It's okay to continue to check in with people as you have updates in your own career. And there's a delicate way that you can approach that. But in general, you want to be kind and you want to be specific and you want to be deferential as you're reaching out.
Absolutely. My point in saying that is, I don't ever want to lose that personal touch that
Mm.
sometimes gets lost through
Hmm.
technology.
Hmm.
And even being able to sit here with you, I absolutely loved meeting you in person. And it's great to see people and have that access, but it's even more rich to be able to talk to, be one on one with the person. It just,
Oh,
it's a wealth. It's a wealth of everything.
absolutely. Couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. One of my favorite topics, fashion. And,
Mhm.
you talk a lot about proper etiquette and sitting proper. There's a lot of different aspects that you talk about in this amazing book. And, we highlighted Jacqueline Kennedy and just how she presented herself during the White House years up until now, Melania. And having a first lady who has a movie, I mean, how spectacular. And just being able to see the fashion transition, the fashion progression. And for young staffers, for young White House staffers, for those even considering, I want to be a White House intern, what are some tools and tips that you can share with these young staff members, especially women who are saying, well, I can't afford this kind of a fashion forward designer closet, but what are ways that I can still be presentable, look very fashionable, feel confident, and not have to break the bank, knowing the starting out staff member, dollar amount is pretty low. So what are great tools that you can provide?
First, know that you don't need to change your outfits all of the time and that it's better to invest in higher quality pieces that you can wear for a longer period than a lot of these fast fashion options. Also know that just because something is like a blazer and a skirt doesn't necessarily mean that it's appropriate for Capitol Hill. Sometimes things are too short or they weren't made with the halls of Congress in mind.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Keep that in mind before you think immediately like, oh, it's a blazer, it must be okay. You also you want to feel very confident in what you're wearing. Like if you're ever thinking like, is this too short or is this too tight or is this too see-through, then it's probably worth reconsidering because you want to feel super confident, super comfortable, and not distracted by whatever you're wearing. When it
Mm,
comes to how do you mix it up if you're thinking I'm on a limited budget, you can do that with things like scarves and accessories,
yeah.
even a different lip color or a different way that you do your hair. That can change a look as well. And there's nothing wrong with having a signature look and the same clothing that you have on a rotation and start to incorporate things that you appreciate over time and build that wardrobe over time. I think of Bunny Mellon, who
Yeah. Yeah.
wrote, I don't know if you remember this, but in her obituary, I remember in the New York Times, it said she was a woman who could have afforded anything she wanted, but only had things she loved. And
Hmm.
there's such a beauty in that. Like, you don't
There
need
is.
many things, just focus on things that you love, things that you really appreciate, and quality over quantity over time.
Absolutely. One thing I remember Jackie Kennedy always saying, when you find something you love, buy it in every color.
Hmm.
And that has been a rule of thumb. And then the whole pearl component. She
Yes.
always wore pearls. You see the beautiful hand pins that many of us wear when we're in Washington, especially, but just the classic pearl look, you can dress up and dress down.
And they don't need to be real pearls. Like, think of Mrs. Barbara Brown,
Exactly.
who used to wear faux pearls all the time.
Yes, exactly. One other thought the accessories to our Capitol Hill White House closets. And as a comms director, I would always keep extra pairs of shoes that would
Yes.
enhance a same outfit, but change it because it was a different color, different pair of shoes. Just
Yes.
full accessories you can really build upon
Yes.
versus feeling like, oh, it's the same old, add a new accessory to it.
And also dress in a way that you wouldn't be embarrassed if something important happened that day.
Exactly.
Maybe you're not in the senator's office every day, but maybe today's going to be the day.
Mm.
So you don't want to be thinking like, oh, I wish I wore a jacket and not a cardigan or,
Yep.
whatever it may be. So be ready for those moments. And also to your point, dress in a way where you can do the job you've been assigned well. So the senator may be doing lots of live shots on cable news and needs to dress a certain way for that. You might be giving tours of the Capitol. And if that's the case, you need to dress in a way that is suitable for giving many tours throughout the day.
Absolutely. You nailed it. And when you say that, giving those tours, you're not only representing your senator or whoever you're working for, you're representing the government, you're representing the nation's capital, and you're representing yourself.
Mhm.
That first impression. And, we have a minute left. Let's talk really quickly about that first impression and that first impression on you. Who was that person in Washington that made that first impression on you?
Like the mentor who made the first impression.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, I love that you asked me this question. It's a dear friend of mine. His name is Rob Austin. He worked in the Reagan administration. I met him when I was an intern writing political stories in Pennsylvania, where I did my undergrad at Villanova University. And for whatever reason, he saw something in me and he mentored me with so much generosity. And I really believe gave me a gravitas beyond my years that helped immensely because as so many things change, so many things remain the same. And
Yeah.
his mentorship and friendship has been such a gift.
I love it. Well, we're going to end there, but I am so grateful to know you, Allison. Thank you for what you're doing for all of the amazing patriots in Washington, D.C. and our Capitol Hill Beltway. You are making an impact, and I'm wanting to encourage everybody to go pick up Was It Something I Said? Many blessings to you on your book tour, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Eden.
Absolutely. For all of those who are tuning in, stay tuned for our next segment. We'll be right back.